The only reason why I'm still here is because I just never gave up, right? And that's the same with you guys. Like, a lot of you will have had some pretty hard times and you just can't give up. You got to make a plan and you got to execute on it.
In this interview with Bill, we talk about the amazing journey he's been on over the last 12 to 18 months and really how he's taken his business from where it was to where it is today, where he has the choice of doing amazing projects with awesome clients and what's on next for him. Bill, first of all, big thank you for coming in and having a chat. We're going to have a bit of a conversation about the journey that Bill's on, Bill has been on with us, with Kurt in business, but also at the end, ask questions. Bill's gone through a huge transformation, business, personal, all sorts.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe jump into it. Bill, how did you get into building? I think that story will resonate with some people. That is actually one thing that a big question that often comes up to us is, how are you going to make me different? There are other builders out there. We are yet to come across any two builders that are the same, any two builders whose story is the same. But yeah, why don't you share a bit about how you came into building?
I grew up in the United States. I was there for 13 years, from 10 to 23. I worked in the ski industry all throughout my 20s, wholesale, retail, distribution, small business management. And at 31, I started my mature age apprenticeship. When I was in the US doing the ski seasons, in the summertime, I did carpentry on some carpentry gangs. And so I kind of had a bit of a into the industry. But yeah, started at 31, went through my apprenticeship in 2 years, went straight out, started working for a couple other builders, and then started by building a front staircase for someone. And when I was building that staircase, the neighbour came over and said, "Hey, can you build us this really nice timber fence?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." And then it just went on to the next one. I was like, I need to get some help here. So a mate of mine came and did a bit of cash work, and it just sort of built from there. So everything was a very natural, sort of organic sort of growth. But yeah, it's come a long way from there, which is pretty amazed at, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that progression of stairs and a fence, and I think a lot of guys would a lot of guys would resonate with that. Okay, and so in business for a while, you mentioned that you've been with Kurt now, started with Kurt about
almost 2 years ago.
Almost 2 years ago. What was the situation the business was in sort of back then, and what prompted you to start looking at, I guess, the who, not how idea?
So I started my company in 2013, and so what's that, almost 8 years in the lead up before working with Kurt, and I'd really done everything the hard way, right? Like because I had this background about running small businesses and managing staff, and I was really passionate about the carpentry. I was like, I'm just going to build this and I'm going to do it all. And I was into systems, so I was trying to do the systems myself. And after 8 years, I was kind of at that point where I'd learned some pretty hard lessons when I started out, because it's been a pretty quick process for me, but I just backed myself and I went for it. Lost some big money on a few projects, and then made some money on some projects and had wins and losses. And it was kind of like this 3 steps forward, 2 steps back sort of thing. And I was to the point where I kind of thought, there's just got to be a better way. And I was using a project management software called Next Minute, and Kurt was doing a guest appearance on one, and I was listening to that. And from there, I got a hold of him. I guess a few of the things that he'd said sort of resonated with me. And I was, a bit reluctant at first, because you're like, oh, what is this? Is this for real? Is it, is it what it seems to be? And so I just went through the process, and it just felt good at each stage. And even after the first call with Kurt, I kind of, what am I going to do? And I was like, no, I've got to do something, because if I'm not going to do this, then I'm just going to pull out. I'm going to give up. I'll go do something else, because it takes a big toll on your family. I've got 3 kids, recently divorced a year and a half ago. And financially, it's a huge strain, and you just go, is it worth it? And when I started working with Kurt, the best way I can describe it is like, if I'd kept persisting, I reckon I probably would have gotten there eventually. Probably not to the level that I'm at now, but definitely not as quickly as it's happened now. I'd kind of describe it as just little nudges in the right direction, like just little course corrections. And a small course correction can have, you can end up in a completely different place over the years, particularly when you get one course correction and then another one and then another one.
Yeah, that trajectory, change it here, change it there, change it there.
Yeah, and like within the 2 years, just for my own mental health, the state of my business, profitability, it's taken a while, but like I had a lot of good things there in place, and now we're starting to lift off. It takes a while, so you've got to speed it up as fast as you can, I guess.
Yeah, only just putting two and two together. I mean, you definitely do dive all in with the who, not the how. With you use us, you work with Kurt, you worked with Aspire, Hayden. Yeah, that's awesome. What attracted you to us, and what situation was the business in, and why did you feel like you wanted to or needed to work with us or talk to us?
Well, to be honest, at first I didn't think I needed to. I was like, oh, it's not me. Another couple of years down the track, I was a reluctant marketer, but again, I was starting to see these other successes from finding the who's, improving processes and systems. And I was like, well, we'll give it a go, and it's been pretty transformational, because what it's really done is, the whole process that we go through, and we might even talk about that, is you drill down and you find that why in your business. And, obviously you're finding the why so you can tell your clients and they can identify with it. But probably even more importantly, you find the why for yourself and your team.
Let's maybe jump into that. So for those of you who haven't worked with us, would be most of the guys in the room. Big first part of, before we touch a camera, before we create anything or do anything or build anything, we want to work with our builders to get really clear on, and it's funny, it's a very common theme. Hayden, your process is the same. What's your ideal client, ideal project? That clarity is so important. And so getting clear on what that is, getting clear on your why is huge. And then from there, then we're all on the same page. We know where you want to be in 4, 5, 10 years, because everything that we do must be pushing you in that direction. We don't want to create some sort of content or video or whatever just because it's pretty or just because it was an idea that popped into someone's head. It's got to have a purpose to it. So maybe jump into the story development process and how you found that, and what was the outcome of that for you and your team?
Yeah, so basically you guys kind of guide us through it, but there's a lot of sort of internal work that's sort of done. You really, it's like you think you've got it, you go through, you answer the questions, and then you drill down again. And then you drill down again. And you drill, and you keep drilling down further and further and further. And then at the very end of it, you find that little kind of essence of what it is that what you're doing, why you're doing it. But then you've got something that you can then build your story from. So I did it by myself first, and then I got my team in. And I got a small team. At the time, I had 3 carpenters and 2 apprentices, and now I've got 2 carpenters and 2 apprentices. And they all got involved. And it's one of those things, when you get your team together, when you get people into a room and you start doing an exercise, they're kind of reluctant. But by the end of it, they go, oh, no, I saw the value in that. And then you go through the rest of the process and you come out with our story video or something, and they go, no, that captured it. That's right,
Yeah, epic. What was it like when you saw it for the first time?
Yeah, well, I'd seen your other videos. I knew I had some pretty hot. I thought there's going to have to be some pretty good stuff. I thought the same thing. One of the really challenging things with my, I guess, the way I see my business is, it is, like I said in there, and that captures it, right? It's about the experience. And it's so hard when you're trying to talk to a client to relay that. I mean, there's all the usual, we're here for you, and this is what we do, and we really care, and we're into the quality. But to be able to drill down a bit further and capture that is a very, very difficult thing to do, particularly capture the authenticity of it. And I felt that I was like, yeah, that's good. And everybody else that I've shown it to who knows me and knows the business, and particularly past clients, they go, yeah, that's you, that's.
Well, what does that feel like? I mean, it was cool to hear some of the feedback once you started implementing it. And great to hear, Ingrid, what you shared earlier. that impact. That's what we want to see and what we want to hear. What was that initial feedback from friends, family, and then from the newer network, prospective clients? What were some of the things you started to see happen once we created the story and then we started helping you implement it?
Well, all the feedback was really, really positive. What I found prior to doing the video was a huge percentage of my time was spent on trying to instill that message into my clients. So I'd be doing extra site visits, sometimes you'd be, in the prelim early stages, and you'd be going out and you'd be like, and you're just repeating yourself, just to really kind of go that extra mile. And I still put in a whole lot, but it's dropped off substantially. By the time a client meets me, they've seen the video, they know the message, they meet me, they go, oh yeah, that backs up what the video said.
Yeah.
So from a time point of view, it saved me a huge amount of time. But I can also now walk in there confidently. Yeah, because it's like when you first walk into a client, they don't know you from a bar of soap. They might have had their friends say, oh, go talk to Bill. But you're starting from scratch. And to get that client across the line and get the best projects, and it needs that. It needs that. And that's always what's gotten me projects ahead of other builders, and also secured the best clients, I guess.
Maybe elaborate on that. I mean, you mentioned it in a podcast we shot the other day. You feel like the conversation's about 3 conversations ahead. What do you mean by that?
So I'd usually go into that initial client meeting on site at their house or wherever it was, and you could see they were sort of holding back. They weren't putting it all out on the table. Where now there's a few factors leading into it. One, they've already seen the video, so they know that. But I'm a lot more confident in who we are and what we do. So you walk in there and you're just saying, well, here we go. This is the way we do it. This is our process. And they go, yeah, okay, we're either on board or we're not. As opposed to all this nurturing that needs to be happening before people are ready to commit. Because clients always, even the best clients who come, you might come to them highly referred from their friends, or they still kind of have their guard up a little bit. And I've definitely noticed that drop. And it just makes the whole process easier. And it speeds up, particularly these days, the last 18 months, prelim processes are just nightmarishly long and aren't as fast as they used to be. And it's just a slog sometimes. So any way you can speed that up is great. And also to be able to progress it quickly, that's a big fear for clients, is they don't know how to proceed in prelim stage, design phase, all these sort of things. But if you walk in there and they're like, hey, this process is moving, we're ready to go, we feel confident, it makes all the difference.
And a lot of that, when Bill was talking about nurturing and educating, a lot of your marketing should be doing that. Your marketing should, Kurt, did you coin the phrase? Your marketing should be selling in advance. So by the time they come to sign contract, they should be excited. They shouldn't be this, I'm not sure, I don't know. They should be excited to be going ahead and be, one of our clients sent us a photo once of a note that they'd completed the project, and they just said, thank you so much for taking us on board and doing our project. That's what you essentially want people to be saying to you when they come on board.
The value, where I see the most value, like I was trying to point out, it's about the client experience, and also our experience, our subcontractors' experience, our team's experience. And if they're enjoying the process because it's moving and firstly, there's value in that. By the time you get to presenting your price, and it's no longer a question of price. It's a matter of saying, well, yeah, this is the way I want to go, because so many people have had and heard such bad stories about this whole process, right? So if you can get through that prelim phase and it's quick and it's fast and they've enjoyed the experience, well, they've got all the reason to expect the rest of the build will go that way.
Beautiful. Corne mentioned the questionnaire and that final question. We only do several projects a year, and that's very accurate for you. We only do X amount. Why should we consider building for you? What have been some of the responses you've seen there? Good, both sides, because and I won't jump into it, but yeah, the mixed responses there.
There's been no sort of like, I guess, real classic ones, but it says a lot about the client, right? I think sometimes they might get to the end of that and don't even want to fill it out. They're like, oh, this guy's a wanker, or I'm not, what is this, And then, well, that's great. It filters them out. They're not going to complete the questionnaire. I don't want to go through what could be a 6-month prelim process and all the effort and all that, You do get the odd one-liner where you can kind of read between the lines. They're just not real into it. They're not trying to sell themselves. But you do also get ones where they're like, look, your questionnaire, your website, everything is like, it shows that you really care, and whatever they write there gives you a huge insight into the way they see you and how keen they are to work with you. So, I haven't had anyone tell me to get stuffed or,
I think Jack said something pretty close, like, who do you think you are?
Yeah. I've heard it because, there's a lot of guys use the same sort of format, right? But it's effective.
Yeah. Yeah, we get a lot of funny texts from our guys on that response, positives and negatives. And so, I think there's no negative. It's either they like you or they're telling you to take a hike. And often, Jack has sent us one of those and he was like, man, thanks for saving me the time on this one. Because then it's like, either you don't even have to respond to that person, or, we could help you just template an email that says, thank you so much for submitting this. I don't think we're a fit. Maybe. All the best with your building endeavors. Anything else you want to share, or what's it? Maybe you're big on experience. We are too. We're big on relationship. What's it like having us in your corner?
Well, I don't have to think about it. I think about it when we're doing the exercises and we're talking about our strategies and the rest, but it's just happening in the background. Before I came on with you guys, other than a really shitty website, I'd never spent a penny.
Prior to that one?
Yeah, prior to that one. I'd never spent a penny on marketing. It was all word of mouth. And now I just know that it's all sort of happening in the background, and it's it's an enjoyable process, like getting people who understand your business and can give you advice and say, look, here we go, you should try this, or we've been thinking about this. And
awesome. Bill, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Any questions from you guys on some good things? I think Kurt's about to ask Bill some questions as well. But any questions from you guys around what Bill does or has seen or experienced?
You've implemented a bunch of systems and you're taking on the help of other people. Do you think that's improved your bottom line? And how did you release that from, I have trouble letting go of certain things that you've given to other people to do for you, estimating, scheduling, helping build processes outside your business. I've kind of fallen short in my growth, I think, because I haven't trusted other people to do things. So how did you do that?
It took a while, particularly with, say, estimating. That was a hard one. But none of these little things are happening in isolation, right? Like you particularly working with, over the last 2 years, I've been building up other systems. So if I didn't have the faith in my systems, and, so for example, with estimating, right? I used several different estimators and now settled on Hayden. The other ones fell down. And so that's what, even going with Hayden, when going through the first exercise, I was still that reluctant sort of, to let go. But what I've realized is it's my internal processes that still maintain control over that. So I still have my internal review processes. I get my guys in. Just because Hayden's guys do the estimate doesn't mean I don't know the project inside out by the time I finish. So whatever you're going to do, if you're going to find someone else to help you do it, whether it's your bills processing or whatever it is, you've just got to make sure that your internal processes support that and maintain that standard, and I actually found it was a lot easier once the framework was set up and we found the right people, because the anxiety in not letting go is about information generally. Like when you have those times and you're waking up at 4 a.m. and you just have that rush, that, I forgot about that, or, whatever it is. It's like, I misestimate. It's like, oh no, when you have the information and you've got the systems and the processes, you just rely on those and you lean on those. And those anxieties they still come up every now and then, but you go back and you go, oh no, I did do that, or it's been checked, So like if you just go out and you blindly put your faith in a whole bunch of who's and just let it run its course, you're going to come unstuck. It's really about doing it internally.
Yeah. Did you enjoy that estimating part of your business?
Man, that was the most anxious time of my life. Yeah, well, it took me a while. It's like you keep doing these things in your business, and because you think you have to, and then it took me like many years to realize how much anxiety it was actually causing me. Particularly with the projects we do. Like no two projects are ever, massively, massively different. So I was using Qubit, doing all my stuff internally. Well, firstly, no template for me is ever going to be the same from one project to another. By the time I get back to doing whatever I did, if I have done it before, price lists will be out of date. And then you got to go through and you go, oh, I got to remember that, and I got to remember. It's just, and particularly once you do it a few times and you really stuff it up and you lose a lot of money, man, it's like PTSD. All it takes is like that one thing, and you just like, you come on. It's so bad. Like it's like I can almost feel it now, But yeah, like you look at that and you identify that, and once you've identified how much trouble it's causing you, it's fantastic to let it go. Like it really is, and you're never going to go back there, right? So when you do take those next steps, you go, okay, I'm not going back there. I'm not going to stuff this up again. I'm not going to stuff this up again. So,
if you were to give advice to your younger self at the stage of when you're first growing a company, what advice would you give?
It would be around the who, not how, right? So you don't have to do it all yourself. And I did it all myself because that was my choice. I was like, I'm going to be that like little bespoke builder who's just onto it all, and but before you know it, it kind of grows and it just takes its toll on you, So, my advice, find the who's, but get your estimations right. Like if you don't have and we might even talk about it with Kurt, but if you don't get your estimations right, you don't have the money, you lose money. Stress comes in, you can't solve problems. And it's good to be across the estimate by doing it, but what else could you be doing? If you're not estimating, you could be spending time with your family, you could be focusing on the next job, you could be looking at your other internal processes. So it's all around, I think, who, not how.
Did you check Hayden's work for the first two that you sort of checked over the work?
Oh yeah.
Like yourself, took yourself out of it and said, do I trust this guy? I'm going to price it up myself, sort of thing.
No, well,
The question was, the first time we went with Hayden, did he check Hayden's work?
I did it with other estimators, but I didn't need to do it with Hayden because his processes and my processes were in alignment, and so we could move confidently. And if I didn't have trust or faith in him the way he presented everything, I probably would have tried to do that. But I don't know if I could. But this one that he did for me, man, it's a monster. It's just, we're just doing a $3 million reno down in St. Lucia. And we've had 12 revisions, and we had Hayden's estimating work. And then internally, I still put in probably 160 hours into it, just to price it and price check it and get across. That's a lot of client management, dealing with the architects and the rest. But so again, it's back to your processes. If you identify where the risks are and you kind of make your processes to suit, then yeah. But I did with another estimator. In sort of like that QBE phase, I blindly went with it, at the QBE phase, because it's But what I found is I was tied to it, because you've given them a number, and then things change over a 12-month prelim, and by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, man, this estimator just really cooped this. And the estimate was about 700, and the build cost came in at 1.1 by the time we got all the detail. I know that's usually you get variations and changes, but then you're just coming back from it. And no, that was my lesson. So my lesson wasn't checking Hayden's, it was checking previous ones and I went, oh no, I've made mistakes there. So I'll put these processes in place so it doesn't happen again.
As a small business, so when you are in a young business, the initial, like, you've come a long way now, but the initial cost is like a hefty cost. So how did you overcome that fear or question mark as to take this big step for this big early investment to get you to where you are?
It was pretty gradual. So I had 8 years sort of working through it. And because of the path that I took, and it was like that slow burn sort of thing, what it allowed me to do was have a good body of work behind me and, really loyal client base and good team and this sort of thing. It was a big leap of faith to start investing in, Kurt and Biz Video and Build-A-Trend. Like, Build-A-Trend is not cheap, but I'd also use the cheaper alternatives and realised that there was just no value in it. And it does reach a point where you just say, well, I see the value in it. As far as the cost goes, well, it has to be gradual. Like, if you just go out there and you throw, unless you've got a heap of cash and you're willing to just really take the plunge, it has to be a gradual sort of thing. You identify the thing that you need most, and then you go from there, and then you go to the next thing.
Would you say it touches on, again, the vision? Because I think, it's going to affect cash flow, but it shouldn't be a cost. These things should never be a cost. They should be providing significant value.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I say when I say that I sort of say the value in Build-A-Trend or Kurt or these guys or whatever. It's because you're right. It's not a cost. It might be a cost up front, but it's just an investment, and it should, whatever decision you make in your business, it has to have a return on investment, right? And as an example, say Build-A-Trend, cost me, I don't know, was it 10 grand a year or something like that? But man, that saves me 10 grand a year, like 5 times over, and just scheduling. So yeah, it's a big cost, but unless you're going to wear that cost yourself with losing all your nights and, paying people to do it, well, so everything has to be a balance.
I mean, maybe a real life example of putting who's in place. You recently, the motorbike trip you did.
Yeah.
I mean, you do putting who's in place means that the business, you are there to run it, but there is an element of it running it that kind of keeps going.
Yeah.
How many days did you take off, and what did you do with your bike trip?
So I was off for 9 days, rode to one bit of Townsville and back, or as much dirt roads as possible, did 4,500 Ks in 9 days. And that was like a couple of years ago. Obviously, my kids are a little bit older now. They're 9, 10 and 12, 9, 10 and 13. But 2 or 3 years ago, no way I could have done that. Like, my guys have the information, it's all planned out, it's scheduled, it's there, and you can do it. And again, something I'm sure we'll talk about with Kurt is my focus now is on giving myself the space to be able to make executive decisions that are going to have massive financial impacts down the track. Whatever you do in business, whether it's deciding to invest in these systems and not invest in them, there's an opportunity cost, right? Like, if you're not investing in that, then it's going to cost you somewhere else. So you just have to weigh it up.
JP mentioned you've been through a significant transformation. So I want to start with that. Tell us a bit about the transformation you've been through, because a lot of it does also tie in with you letting go of tasks that you don't enjoy doing and then identifying like your unique ability, right?
As a starting point, when I started with Kurt, I was probably losing, 100 grand a year. I had prospects and I could see a pathway. I kept on trying to get through it, right? At the same time, I was in my marriage, like I said, 3 kids. Marriage ended last year after 13 years. So I was going through this whole process of like, oh man, I've got to really make some changes here. And really, the end of my marriage was a major turning point for me, because it opened up like the confidence that I came out of it. I said, well, this is what I want. This is what I need. This is what my kids need. It then opened up this whole avenue of me going, really looking quite deeply into myself. It had started a few years earlier, 4.5 years ago. I gave up alcohol altogether. Was doing lots and lots of meditation, still do. So everything's been very much an internal why focused, very kind of philosophical sort of view. And by shedding all these things, it's now allowed me to open up and move forward.
It's phenomenal, man. Like I've seen like a whole new person emerge, and it's not a new person. It's you inside. So you got rid of things that weren't working out, like, you know, working through your divorce, which I went through one as well. Just I mentioned to these guys earlier. But can we, this is unscripted, but can we talk about that lawyer thing? So I told you my story. I went through the Chris Voss approach and then iterated and looked for that silver lining, got that skill set on how to negotiate with terrorists. Off the back of that, right? So if I'm ever in that situation, but in your case, I've got just a personal, wouldn't say hatred, but dislike for lawyers in general, right? Although there are some good ones out there, but it was fascinating when because you had a similar thing. You went through your divorce settlement amicably with your wife. Both you and your wife were in agreement on what was going to happen, and you were in a room with the two of you and your lawyers, and the lawyers got pissed off because you just wanted to settle. And there was no disagreement.
Yeah, I mean, when we said, okay, we're going to split, it was a 10-minute conversation about finances, kids. Yep, done, sweet. And it was great because there was a lot of mutual respect there. We still respect each other and care for each other a lot. It just wasn't the right thing. And these lawyers are like, okay, $700 an hour, let's stop the clock, you know?
Yeah, they were not happier. They just like hoping for it to be acrimonious.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. But yeah, so just want to get into some specifics, right? Because you mentioned who, not how, that came up at the boardroom. That was probably the number one thing that most of the seven-figure club guys pointed to. Could you give us just break down the specifics of the systems that you've got in place? So you've mentioned Build a Trend, obviously using Hayden, this video, but give us some more specifics around that breakdown, like your systems from cradle to grave.
Yeah. So to start with, you've seen the videos, and we've got our marketing, which is increasing our awareness, going out to new people, which is great. You know, I'm no longer just purely relying on word of mouth. So I've got more of a feed coming to me and of clients, but not only that, like much higher quality clients, you know, like the value of the client, not necessarily the dollar value. I mean, that is part of it, but the value of the clients is much higher. So we have that working. And then we have our sales process that was developed with Kurt, and that's really effective. That in itself has saved me just months of work. You know, like the number of times you get a call and you're like, oh, I've got to go chase this down. And you're going out and, yeah, you know, I'll try and make it work. And you're focused on the job, on like trying to make the job work, as opposed to going, hey, is this the right client? Is this what we want to be doing? So we've got our sales process working. From there, within the sales process, we've got our estimation. So we outsource, we go to Hayden, we have our internal review processes, back and forth, present to the client. And a really key thing with that, as far as closing the deal, making the sale, is that's timely, right? So in the past, it's like me there in the office, oh, I've got to do that estimate. Oh, yeah, no, I'll get it to you next week. And it just pushed, and particularly as businesses grow and you're trying to do all the different things that you got to do while you're trying to run a business, when you don't have all these other systems in place, it just doesn't happen, right? So the client's trust erodes over that period of time, where now I go, yep, great, I've filtered out my clients. This is the client I want to work with. They want to work with me. Budget, it seems all right. Let's go through. I'll either do a QBE. If not, we'll proceed straight to a full project costing. But that happens quickly. Like, so this $3 million project that we're on, I think we did the turnaround and all the revisions in 2 months. Where previously, well, firstly, I couldn't have priced this project myself, but it would have taken much, much longer even if I'd tried. So yeah, we've got that. And then from the point we get the client signing the contract and saying, yep, let's go, we take Hayden's estimate in Excel format, We give it to Aspire Projects. They do the mapping for the cost codes and implement that into Buildertrend. Buildertrend, by the way, I'd been using it, but when I signed up with Aspire Projects, they did an audit, and we rejigged the structure a little bit of how we were doing it so that it spoke to Xero and the process was as seamless as possible. So at that stage, we're pretty much ready to go, right? We've got our project there. And then once we're into the project,
Sorry, just on those couple of things. So that part of the process is largely automated. That you've got a process for it. It's very consistent. Any client that goes through is going to experience the same process, and it's outsourced. So you got Hayden and Aspire doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you, right?
yeah, so I get my estimate, and I'm not sitting there for days on end trying to enter it all into the system, making sure that the structure and everything within Buildertrend is set up the way that I think it should be set up. We've been through an exercise and a process to make sure that the setup works for our business. So I get the estimate, send an email, 2 weeks, and a week later, it's set up. We're ready to go. I haven't had to do anything.
Aspire. Yeah. You mentioned if they're not a good fit, or if they're a fit, you move forward. If they're not, so how do you eject people that aren't a good fit? They're coming through your sales process. You're like, oh, I don't like what I'm seeing for whatever reason. What happens?
Yeah, well, it depends on, sometimes it is legitimately just not the kind of work that we do. We just go back to them and promptly say, look, we appreciate your inquiry, but this project isn't really up our alley, we've got a certain project type that we do and this isn't suitable. However, I've got a few other builders here that might be able to help you. And then you give them, I might have made a few calls, it might be just a template, and then at least they're going, okay, I appreciate that.
And that's how you say no to someone. You refer them on politely. I know someone who's better fit. All right. Unscripted again. I didn't tell you all about this. Okay,
That's where I shine, mate.
Off the cuff. Banks. Yeah. What's your experience with the banks?
Well, the last
Intake.
Well, this project that we're doing here, it was shocking. We all know banks can be pretty difficult, right? But they just keep shifting the goalposts. So on this last one, since everything's happened over the last 18 months, you got builders falling over, the banks are trying to protect themselves, and any project over 2 mil, they then do due diligence on the builder. So I'd sign this contract, we're ready to go, client's ready, I'm ready, let's go. And the bank's like, no, we need you to supply resumes, work history, cash flow forecast, financials for the last 2 years, proven history of these size and scale projects. And it was a nightmare. I got through it, and the client backed me the whole way. Yeah. But yeah, it's still it's something that's somewhat out of your control. You never know what these clients.
If you had a choice, banks or no banks, a AAA grade blue chip client would be one that is not going through a bank.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And as I was growing, and I was maybe picking the wrong clients who were always working beyond their budget. They're constrained by the banks, and you end up just by picking the wrong client who can only get so much money. Well, you're behind the 8 ball,
Yeah.
So
I always maintain that if the bank was a human being, it would be the perfect psychopath. All right. They don't get treated. It is. Yeah, they do. They don't. They honestly do not care. One of my builders, just yesterday, we were talking about how the bank wanted them to change the payment schedule, to have less payments. They wanted to hold on to money longer, basically. And then the builder said, okay, could you explain why? And they're like, what's your process? Why? And what sort of process are you complying with? And how does this relate to building? Zero. It doesn't. It relates to them and their bottom line, basically. So, hey, in your video, you mentioned you're basically client-centric. So you care about your clients genuinely, and that's how you sort of come across as a person. And I want to get to leadership and team in a sec, but do you have a process there? Because we've gone through your sales process now, Hayden, Aspire. So you onboard them, and then through the build, obviously using Buildertrend, is there anything you do to make it a better client experience? Anything specific?
Really kind of, continued some of the things that we used to do, but Buildertrend does a huge amount of the lifting for us. Communicating through Buildertrend, try and get your clients on there, using the client portal, My team are just super diligent on doing daily logs, notifying clients. They get that thing because just because the client loves you and they've been through this whole process and they want to build with you doesn't mean that you still got to work at it the whole way through. So yeah, communicating and meeting with the clients fortnightly is absolutely critical. Particularly in this project, which is an architect administered project, so the architect is a superintendent, where you don't have as much contact with the client. And that's been difficult for me to sort of not have, because you can put out lots of little micro fires as you're doing it. So, but what that actually does is it just highlights how important the systems are that you have in place.
Yeah, fantastic. Tell us a bit about your team structure. Like how many guys do you have on site in the office? You've got a great team, and I believe it's a reflection of your leadership. But yeah, give us a bit of a breakdown.
So in the office, it's me, and it has only been me. Well, for the last 2 years. So I got off the tools 2 years ago. I'm just taking on a casual sort of admin person just to do the low value, low fun work. And then on site, I've got 2 carpenters, one's employee, one's subcontract, and then 2 mature age apprentices. My lead carpenter, he's essentially a project manager. He was a mature age apprentice. He was one of the guys who came on. I met him through my painter. He's been with me for 8 years. And then the 2 other mature age apprentices are his cousins. One's an architecture student and the other one's just been a bang about sort of landscaper. And then the subcontractor, he's been with me on and off, but mostly on for the last 2 years. And my team, like, they're everything, right? Like, because I worked with Dominic, my main guy, from the beginning of his apprenticeship until 2 years ago on the tools, like, he knows the way I work inside out. But the best value of that was that, one, he knows how I work, but like, and he's just an absolute top-notch human being. Like, you just couldn't get anybody of higher quality character. That thing that we had when the 2 of us were working together, you know, like my work ethic, my approach to the clients, like that is now like embedded in our team, particularly through Dominic, but also, you know, the other guys. We just don't have high turnover of staff. The guys, they love what they do. 2 weeks ago, we just got to the end of this really, really big push, and the guys were putting in huge days, and one of them sent in the little group chat on a Friday. He's like, man, I just love working with you guys. This is great. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. This is cool. So yeah, now it's really, okay, well, how can we expand on that? Because one, there is a vulnerability there. Like, I don't think Dominic's going anywhere because I look after him and he enjoys what he does. But now it's about going, okay, well, how can I expand on that and make sure that continues and grows, you know, because we will be growing. Like, I don't want to be running 10 projects a year. Like this project we're running at the moment, I could maybe build to running 2 of them at this stage, but I'm going to need more guys. And it's really, really important that why and that messaging sticks with them.
Yeah. No, that's so important. So you built a strong culture, which is brilliant. What's been the biggest challenge for you that you've had to face as a builder and business owner, and how have you overcome it?
There's a lot. There is a lot. Just getting across all of it in the right sequence, in the right order. Like, you know, like you said, like when you commit to certain things, in the early stages, you're trying to do everything. If you know, because you know you got to work on your estimating, you know you got to work on this, and you know you got to work on your marketing and your team, and get across the numbers and figure out who you are as a business. So there's a lot to really sort of unpack there. But I think my biggest thing would be myself, realizing my own limitations and where my skills are best placed. Because I have done it all and I can do it all. It doesn't mean I can do all of it really well. There's certain things that I can do much, much better than a lot of people, particularly being that it's my business. Yeah, getting on top of my own, who I am, and having that space that's been the biggest challenge.
Powerful, man. Yeah, so that's why, you know, your success can largely be attributed to your leadership and personal development, because you've done a lot. Like you said, meditation, introspection, just constantly looking to improve.
Yeah.
Always, yeah.
particularly over the last 2 years of implementing all these systems, like I'm starting to feel that space. I'm feeling like I've got that time to come and do this and talk to you guys and figure out what it is that I really value out of what it is that I do. It just takes time, but you've got to start trimming away the things that are just eating up your time that shouldn't be, because we only have so much time. I mean, you guys I'm sure know that feeling of like, I've just got so much going on and I can't take on one more thing and it's overwhelming. And that's no way to run a business. I love what we do. The work that we do, I absolutely love. Ultimately though, I'd like to get out of client work, go into non-client stuff. We all have these really hard times, stressful times, but if you get your pricing right and you get your processes and your sales right and you pick the right clients and you're making money, you have money, the problems go away. You can just make a decision.
It does solve a lot of problems, doesn't it?
It does, man. I know I had the wrong money mindset years ago, but now I'm like, this is good. Like my life is better.
I love it. We'll end on that note, mate. Thank you so much and congratulations, man. Cheers.